Evening, it is 6 o'clock, July the 25th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting of the Montgomery City Council into session at this time. We appreciate you viewing from the outside and those who can make it this evening for taking an interest in our city. I'd like to ask that you silence your cell phones to avoid any interruptions to our meeting as we proceed forward. We do have a quorum. Everyone is here this evening. And so with that, I'd like to invite you to stand as Mr. Dan Donaldson leads us in our invocation, followed by our salute flags.
Heavenly Father, we come to you in the name of Jesus, and we ask you tonight, Father, to give us wisdom, Father, to deal with the knowledge and the agenda we have tonight. Help us to do what's right and just and fair. Help us, Father, to be good stewards of the city's money and to be ever aware of the safety and welfare of our citizens. We thank you for these things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Salute to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, under the Visitor Citizens Forum, we have one signed up to speak, Mr. Matt Tucker. Would you go to the podium, state your name and address, please? And, Mr. Donaldson, would you keep the time at 3 minutes for us, please?
I apologize for any confusion. My name is Matt Tucker. I'm here to answer any questions that might appear for item number 2 on the agenda.
Do you want to speak then, or?
Anyone have any questions?
Once we reach that point, if there are any questions, I'm available.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, sir. All right. Consideration possible action, item 1. Consideration possible action on a parking variance request from Home Depot USA Incorporated.
Mayor and Council, we spoke about this item last night in the workshop, and the the Planning and Zoning Commission, they reviewed the variance request at their July 5th meeting and recommended approval. And with that, I will turn it over to the Home Depot team here, who you may recognize from last night, to talk about it further.
Hello, Council. Thank you for having us. I'm Dan Zoldak, representing Home Depot for this agenda item for the parking variance. I think it's already been previously presented to you, along with the meeting last night. Open for any questions that you may have and whatnot.
So let's say that if Home Depot comes here and it's wildly successful, and you need additional parking, what's the solution? Since it's going less than what the city ordinance is today?
So Home Depot has a program, and one of the programs is to relieve our overburdened stores. And so if this store becomes overburdened, we will look in the immediate area for another store to open. However, we are operating stores throughout the country with this amount of stalls. And in all projections, we would never reach the higher level stores of over 100 million. You know, this is, say, projected to be at 50 million a year. And growth projections here, you know, let's say you go 2-4% a year, it would take a long time to reach, 100 million a year. And the 400 stalls would still be sufficient for, if the growth kept going for a lot of years, that we would still be able to serve this store with the 400 stalls. And if we get to that point, we would then look to relieve this store, just similar to where we're relieving the Conroe store right now.
as I stated last night, traffic and particularly commercial traffic is my biggest, concern. I know you're willing to go to the front of the store. It's a big need to me all the way to Lone Star. If council and staff is willing to go into negotiations of split funding or whatnot, that option could be on the table. But I would hate to get into a situation where we do maybe what amounts to a third of that stretch, and then maybe or maybe not be able to handle the 2/3, because relying on TxDOT has not been a real good thing for us and for anybody in the state of Texas. With that said, though, that option could be available. But I've heard even more since last night about the insistence on brick, or at the very least, something stone. I know the other day, I can't remember where it was, a workshop, looking at wayfinding and some signs transitioning into the town. And we talked about a nice stone finish and that sort of thing. So that'll be setting catty corner between your lot to the front of the highway, and just trying to get an aesthetic appeal there. So that's just input from the community that I'm getting there.
Sure. We stand before you for a parking variance, and kind of taking one of your items at a time. Going to Lone Star would absolutely be an undue hardship on this project, and it would kill it. I'll look you in the eyes and tell you that's we can't do that. And to even ask one single landowner to go well beyond their project frontage is just an absolute undue hardship on anybody to go beyond their project frontage. And so I understand that city has needs, and I would hope that city is putting a traffic master plan and putting appropriate funds together to deal with your road improvement requirements. With that said, there would be opportunity to the city to appropriately plan. Obviously, with our project, we'll be bringing a lot of sales tax revenue to the city. If the city, sets aside those funds every year, it could possibly, you could take out, a quarter of the project every year, or you can, enter a bond agreement. You have a lot of options in front of you to deal with the road improvements that will be required associated with that. I think we're in agreement with you that it needs to be done eventually, and the city should tackle it. But we're just of the opinion that the city really needs to work on the plan, and we can help guide that situation. And I think with the funds that should be available through sales tax, if they're set aside appropriately, things could be tackled.
And to your point there, I visited with the council, I visited with the Home Depot team today. I thought we made very good progress as far as coming towards agreement. And to that, I'm just going to make this short and sweet. I'd like to make a motion to approve the parking variance contingent upon the Home Depot contribution of the amount that we talked about, agreed upon, towards the improvement of the Buffalo Springs Road. Based on the agreement and that we can get certain things done by a certain period of time, and we need to negotiate a 380 agreement to improve the Buffalo Springs Road. So that's my motion. I know it's a little hard to understand, and there's certain things I can and can't say, so yeah.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve with stipulations of entering into some form of agreement. Council, is that?
So what's the limit of the improvements? Can we get a more?
So based on what we talked about today is the limit, so it was the $250,000 in cash, contribution, and the budget of the stoplight. If we can get things based on the contingent that we get things done on time.
So within the agreement, the Buffalo Springs will be constructed to the first roadway.
To the first roadway.
And the traffic signal will be installed prior to C of O.
By you?
By the city.
That's by the city?
I think so.
No.
No. We were told you.
Well, that's a motion now. So
Okay.
if you want to amend a motion, you can amend the motion.
Is it debatable, amendable?
It is
Open for
debatable,
discussion?
amendable, open for discussion.
What about the brick? I think we talked about it today, Clay, like the aesthetics of it, I'm not, but the brick is where the city ordinance, I think it's a much better looking building, and do you want to add brick in there, Casey, or is that not part of this?
I'm not making the amendments. I made my motion.
Okay, well, I'm saying, I'd like to add brick if I think it's better, more up for discussion with that caveat, but that's not on the, that's not on your motion, so.
Yeah, let me just address the brick, and as far as Renee's budget, it's a budget that we're over right now. Dan is tasked with figuring out how to solve some of the soil condition issues, and as we work to that, we all have faith in Dan. We're all going to be relying on Dan to pull that off. When we look at the return on the store, it's not a downtown Chicago, or Renee's looking all over the country at stores. It does meet their threshold, and they definitely want to partner with the city of Montgomery. There's no question, and so we're grateful for the opportunity. I think we committed to the signal last night. Funding the signal, we'd expedite the signal. In lieu of that, our conversation was back with our team in Atlanta today was we'll contribute $250,000 towards the road improvement, plus we'll allow you to take over the signal, so that's $750,000. If you're able to, TxDOT is committed to the signal. We know TxDOT is committed. They're in design. I think they're at 90% design today. So TxDOT should really be building the signal. So that would allow you to use the funds 100% on the road.
It took us 5 years to get a turn lane from TxDOT. We're not a high priority.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
And when you say the burden's on the city for the signal, what does that mean? Does that mean we pay for it, we have it installed, we have to work with TxDOT? What does that mean in your mind?
It means that, but to the extent that it's already on TxDOT's approval to be built, we want to expedite TxDOT paying for the signal.
Absolutely. So, and that's my point to this, is that TxDOT owes us a stoplight, right? They want the stoplight, it's warranted, it's their road. We shouldn't be paying for a stoplight, right? So if we can get help from Home Depot to pressure them, that'd be wonderful. We're also going to try to do that ourselves to get the stoplight built, so we can use the funds to fix a road that we need to get fixed. So that's where the motion comes from. That's where the deal comes from. As far as all the intricacies of how the contract's going to be written, we can't do that in open. We're going to have to leave that up to you and our legal team to figure out all the ins and outs, because I don't know how the ins and outs of the 380 agreement work specifically. So,
well, and Casey, the way, Councilmember Olson, the way that this would work is, I'm not sure we have to do a 380, because if we're making the contribution, we're not necessarily looking for money to come back.
right. So I think based on the opinion of the council, they would prefer just do the 380 and build it out. So based on the two options that we talked about, with 380, without 380, I run it by back, both of them. I think 380 is kind of the way they lean, so that's why I put it in the motion.
We could sit down and discuss how to structure that.
Absolutely. We could move forward with 380 by council, or if you have other agreements or other options to propose to council, then you can provide those options and they can make their decision.
So, and we did commit to the landscaping last night. I think we estimated 50,000, just a cost we have, but we're committed to the screening. We have never committed and cannot commit to building material upgrades. And I'm just addressing the brick now. And I know, I love the store. I mean, I said that last night. I think it's a great-looking store. There were comments that people thought it was ugly. But it's a pretty good-looking store. And
It's
it's,
going to be a second variance you'll have to come back for?
Yeah, does that have to come back, staff, for variance? No. Because it's already, it had reached this.
No, we can't govern materials, we
No, I
can
meant,
request it.
right,
Yeah.
okay,
I just didn't know.
yeah, the way I read this was staff recommendations.
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick. So in accordance with state law, you're not allowed to condition the building materials. You're conditioning the building materials for this
Request.
parking variance. So there's no elevation request here on the table, and there never really was. It was council that brought it up. And so, sticking to state law,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
there shouldn't be any building materials. And I want to address the prototype. So Home Depot did spend a lot of time creating their prototype. They're very proud of it, and they're planning to roll it out through the state of Texas, through the country, but specifically the state of Texas, because the growth here, obviously, we're looking at the 20 to 30 stores that we want to have that look and feel of a Home Depot, and that's our new look and feel. And so, for the first store, one of the first stores to get turned down, they want the prototype, and they want the look and feel of what they want Home Depot to feel like. And so it's very important to them, and we feel like we came to the table with, Buffalo Springs, with some additional landscaping, and it is very important to us.
Can I just want to say, just a couple of things. I had a chance to go back through, I looked at your budget, your 22-23 budget, and the tax rates, and just based on, can I share, their estimates, projections. So projections are running a 5-year average of $50 million in sales per year, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I just read this morning, the school district, well, let me go to the sales tax, it's 2%, so that's $1 million a year in projected sales tax. And so one of the, and we determined we're probably, as a city, the city of Montgomery, we are losing probably $400,000 in sales tax, just looking at what we know when we collect data. That's an estimate. And then when you go look at we mentioned last night there's 175 jobs created. That, our building cost is running about $17 million. So when you look at the possible ad valorem increase on this project, it equates to about $200,000 to Montgomery ISD a year, and then another $60,000 to the city in increased ad valorem. I didn't see anything beneficial really to the ESD. Maybe if we were outside the city and over in Montgomery County, they would pick up more money there, but I think it was about $15,000, roughly. So, did I leave anything out on that?
No, I think
okay. So, you will find if you approve them coming in and grant them the parking variance, you'll find they're great friends and neighbors to have. They'll be beneficial to your community. So I just hope you'll consider it. I think with the, we need to just work out if there's a contribution of the $750. It includes the signal as a part of that, and we're willing to go to any meeting if we need to meet with TxDOT or the county commissioners, whatever it takes to expedite that. Any other questions?
We have a motion, and we do have a second. Any further discussion? Council ready for the question? All in favor of approving the motion as stated with stipulations recorded and stated, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no.
No.
And 4-1, we will approve item number 1 as stated with stipulations as recorded and stated. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Item number 2, public hearing and consideration of possible action on Lone Star Estates partial replat number 1. And we enter into public, we need to do that at 6:21 then, right? So it's 6:21 and we will enter into public hearing. Okay?
For the benefit of all here, just the public hearing, again, this is for a partial replat of Lone Star Estates, which are acreage lots in the center of the city, roughly just north of College Street. The request in the replat involves 3 lots. 2 lots are being combined into one, and the shared lot line with the other line, or with the other lot, is being adjusted just to provide waterfront access to both of the lots. State law does require any amendments to a single-family property to go through the public hearing process, which is what we're doing tonight.
Okay. Anyone have anything to say or questions? I think we had gone through this before in prior council, several months. It's been a few months, though, right?
Yes, sir. We called the public hearing and kind of gave you a brief overview of what was happening, and so tonight is that hearing and the action. But you're correct; it was on a previous agenda or a previous agenda.
I don't remember any problem. Council? No problems. All right.
So you will close the public hearing and we can move on to the action.
Very good. It is 7:22. We're back into session, and item number 2. So what is that? Do we have a consideration here?
Yeah, action.
So we do have an action item, public hearing consideration, possible action on Lone Star Estates partial replat number 1. Do we have any other discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it as presented.
Motion, do I have a second?
Yes, a second.
Second by Casey. Motion's debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving item 2 as stated, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no. And we will approve item 2 as stated. Item number 3, Transportation Advisory Committee Charter Adoption.
Thank you, Mayor. In your package, you should have an amended version of the committee charter that I presented from when I presented at the workshop a couple weeks ago. There are a couple items. Can you pull up the screen? One item under section 2 is the appointments to the committee. So we reviewed the entire charter. There were a couple of questions about how the committee members were appointed, so I gave you some options in here. I'll leave them out for the benefit of the audience. So section 2, appointment of the committee. One option is when the committee seat is vacant, the mayor shall nominate candidates for the city council. Nominees are required only 2 affirmative votes by the city council to be appointed by the committee. Appointed to the committee. Or the mayor shall appoint all committee members. Or the mayor shall nominate to the city council all appointees to the committee. The city council must then affirm the appointment by majority vote of the council. Or the final option, when a committee seat is vacant, any council member may nominate a candidate for the committee. For committee appointment, nominees shall require a majority vote of the city council to be appointed to the committee. So that was kind of the sticking point last time. So I need y'all to decide on how you want to appoint the members, and then if you want to approve it, I recommend approval, and then calling for the applications.
Should we keep it in line with what we do with MEDC and P&Z? Or do you want to have a different method? which is today. People sign up, and then it's up for discussion, and then it's voted on.
Yeah, any council will get nominated
Yeah.
by someone in the committee, and then the council will decide who is appointed to the committee.
So that would be option 4? Is that
That'd be the
right?
last option.
Just making sure.
Confused.
So it's just 4 different options on the
4 different options.
to appoint committee members, so how would you want to do it?
Like P and Z and me.
So that's option 4.
Okay, 4 is it.
You good with 4?
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other discussion? All right, anything else in the charter we need to look at? Because everything else
I'm good with you all.
was good? Okay. Any motion?
I do have one question. Was the recommendation for the member of the police department and a member
So
of...
I'll read this, I'm glad you brought that up, that was one of the things we talked about. So I'll read the qualifications. And I rewrote this a little bit because I didn't like the wording of it from last time. So the committee shall consist of 5 members. 1 appointee should be a council member. 1 appointee should be the police chief or his or her designee, with the remaining appointees having an interest in the city of Montgomery, resident, business owner, outside agency partner, etc., and the background that benefits community work, engineer, planner, developer,
Good.
layman. Members shall serve 2-year terms and be appointed for additional terms. So I want to keep the language in there permissive, so it kind of gives you some flexibility. But yes, we had the police chief. I think you also talked about wanting an EDC member, but that can be one of these other.
Yeah, absolutely. You, whoever. Yeah.
Did discuss with another council member earlier about reaching out to the school, so I reached out to the school and said, hey, look for this opportunity. It'd be nice to have a transportation director, at least apply, and then we can have a choice to have a school person, ready, or a designee if it's not the transportation director. So I did reach out to that entity. All right. So we'll need a motion stated to adopt the Transportation Advisory Committee with option 4 of section 2.
Make a motion to accept as presented.
I second.
We have a motion by Casey, second by Sarah. Motion's debatable, amendable, requires a majority vote.
That was with option 4, though, right?
With option 4.
Right.
Make sure we record option 4 as our choice there. All in favor of approving the Montgomery Transportation Advisory Committee Charter as stated with option 4 selected, say yes.
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 Anyone opposed, say no, and we will approve as stated. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Item 4, consideration and possible action regarding the proposal submitted by Ward Getz and Associates, PLLC, for completion of an amendment application for the Texas Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit for Town Creek wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What is before you is a follow-up to the wastewater treatment plant analysis that was presented at your July 11th workshop. This is really the first step in getting the process going. So your current permit at the Town Creek wastewater treatment plant is for 175,000 gallons per day, or 0.175 MGD. The city has maintained this permit. It is active currently, was renewed last year. The next step in the process, though, is to begin the permit amendment. And so what is proposed is to take the current permit from its 0.175 MGD to an initial phase of 0.4 MGD, which will match your Stewart Creek plant. And we also propose including an ultimate phase of 0.8 MGD in the permit. What that allows you to do is, in the future, if the city were to choose to further expand the Town Creek plant to 0.8 MGD, it's a letter to the TCEQ. The process is very simple since it's already built into the permit. This is approximately a year-long process, which is why we're recommending getting started with it now. It can take some time, especially once it gets into the TCEQ's hands. We are proposing to do this for $10,000 lump sum, plus any reimbursables, running it in the paper or any kind of reproduction. The budget that we have in there would cover anything, and the city would only pay for what is spent since it's shown as time and materials.
Any questions? All right, entertain motion.
make a motion to authorize the city engineer to prepare the permit for amendment application for the Town Creek Water, wastewater treatment plant for TPDS permit.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second is by Stan. Motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. All in favor of approving item 4 as stated, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no, and we will approve item 4 as stated. Departmental reports, item 5, sales tax report.
It's in your packets, Mayor. I quite honestly haven't looked at it yet, so I can't answer any questions on it, but it looks like it's pretty much the same as the last reports
Pretty much.
with regard to the rankings.
Okay. All right. Item 6, June 2023 municipal court report. Kimberly.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The court report for June 2023, the citations were 106 and the revenue was $19,575.84. Are there any questions for the municipal court? Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, police and code enforcement report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have both the reports, both the police report and code enforcement before you. Do you have any questions?
What's up with all the trailers getting stolen?
We're recovering a couple of them, too.
I know you have. I know you've done a great job. Yeah, I'm just like, but why, what's going on? Like, I'm not asking what the police department's doing. I'm asking what's going on.
We're not stealing them in finding them. We're,
Sorry?
We're just finding them. We're not stealing them in finding them. We're just finding them.
Glad we cleared that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Crystal clear.
So have you made any progress with the warrants that were issued for the folks that robbed the...
Yes, we filed the warrants on those folks. They've done that in Magnolia, Tomball, and a couple of areas around Houston. And we identified 3. We got, so yeah, we filed the warrants on those folks already. Yeah. The same as we filed the warrant on the guy that you've seen in CVS as well. So yeah, we've got.
Those 4 women seem to be popular. A lot of people on the Facebook page respond to saying they knew that these places have been hit, Spring, Tomball, Navasota.
Right.
And looks like they're just moving up 6 and 45. So it looks like hopefully it's easy to find them. Sounds like we've been able to collect.
It gets easier. It gets easier with flock cameras.
Yep.
So yeah, it gets a lot easier, and when they're doing it a little bit of everywhere. Because I think they got away with about 23,000 here. So yeah.
Easy.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Item 8, utility operations report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This will be your June 2023 report. Page 2 will be your district alerts. We had a sewer backup at 2785 McGinnis on the 20th. Blockage was cleared, no further issues. 22nd, we had a power failure at lift station 4. Operator was able to pump down the wet well. We did find an issue with the auto dialer, would not reset, couldn't get the keypad to work. And got approval for, I believe that one's being replaced. Page should be wastewater plant flow details. The average flow from the plant was 210,000 gallons per day for the month. You treated 6.305 million gallons. Page 4 is your discharge limitations. Y'all were within compliance. All samples were good for the wastewater plant. Page 5 will be your water report. You pumped a total of 14.618 million gallons. You sold 14.096 million, accounted for 97%. I also added the pumpage permits that are left for the water system for this year. You have 65 million for as well 2 and 3, and well 4 has 48.6 million for the year. Page 6 is your groundwater production, shows your monthly pumpage and by well. Then the final page 7 is just your running accountability, which is it's great as usual. I mean, we're averaging 95, 96% for the running average. You have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple, actually. It's probably going to be for Mike and yourself. I questioned a couple meetings back about our preventive maintenance plans. I was reassured then that they were top-notch and everything was in place. So I feel like that's not the case, since we just had a overage with one of our water samples, and now we have to send this out with all the water troubles we've had already. Now we have to send that out to the city and say, hey, we just sold you a bunch of bad water. So I'm a little disappointed in the fact that everybody's PMs are great, but yet we fail a quarterly. I mean, what's the path forward?
What I'll say is the
Hold on a second, Mike. Jacob, if you just kind of give a quick overview.
Yeah.
Like what happened, how it happened, and
Yes, we popped on TTHM, which is total trihalomethanes, to sample. It's due to chlorine byproduct. It also can be affected by water age. We popped it's basically a running average. We can never go above the 0.008 or 0.08 on the decimal point there. So we did have the violation. We've worked with Mike on trying to remedy the solution. We got the samples being taken by a third-party lab that don't get reported, but will give us a better understanding of if this was a one-time incident or if there's actually an ongoing issue, but we believe it's just kind of a one-time incident. I know it's...
Aren't those, I think part of the issue was it was caught so late. You're looking at 3 months and you should see a trend, and wasn't there a gap? It just seems like you should have been able to say, okay, here's my trend right now, and it didn't get acted on.
Well, the problem is we don't see these results from the state. They don't send us a copy of these results. Like I said, when they come up with this quarterly testing, they're testing for a possible 209 items. We aren't notified to those violation. We have to wait for, even to view it on the website, we have to wait for the state to post it.
Right.
Even that violation we got was 2 months after they took the sample.
Absolutely. Do you not have the same kind of testing? I mean, so we're testing, you're testing, but we're not testing for the same thing?
No, ma'am, they're testing for other things. We take a chlorine residual.
So then your testing doesn't match what TCEQ would be testing, so therefore
These are...
we leave ourselves out there to be open for liability?
No, ma'am, we test for chlorine for the compliance samples. These are done by the state. These are other things. If you get your CCR, which is on the mail, that's what they're testing for.
But why can't we test for that? Like, how can we catch this earlier?
So that's called preventative maintenance, right? We take we're doing our maintenance, we take our
Being
samples,
proactive.
and we see where we are, right? Periodically see where we are, so we're not getting caught with our hand in the jar because we weren't paying attention.
I understand, the frustration behind it. I think not paying attention, I don't think is fair, but I understand.
Well, not knowing is not paying attention, so ignorance is not an excuse, right? We didn't do the tests, so that means we're ignorant to what they're sampling for. But if we know they're sampling for it, why wouldn't we do those tests? That's my question. Our path forward is what? How do we prevent this in the
Right,
future?
because understand, we have to answer to the people when they get that letter in the mail, it's hair raising.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. These are tests our operators can't perform. That's why we're getting a third-party lab. And even the samples they take, the state doesn't recognize them.
I'm not asking the state to recognize them, I'm asking us to recognize them. To give us a health code, basically, here's a snapshot of our health right now, every month or every 2 weeks or whatever it is, to keep us ahead of the curve. To the point of Byron is, you set a trend, and you say, hey, we're trending up, we're trending down. It's not hard to figure out what, I know, it's an overchlorination mixed with organic solubles, basically, right? So we know that some of our wells have higher organic solubles. When we're using those wells, why aren't we testing to make sure that we're ahead of the curve, right? It's preventing.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. The second month of that particular time was like .117. I'm pretty sure it was like an aberration. So we should have been able to count it in that particular window was my thing. And then it dropped a little bit, point whatever. But there was some engineers, I don't remember, I'm not looking at it now, but looking at that particular window, and Mike, maybe you can help me out, but it seems like right in the middle of that, we should have been able to catch it like then, and we didn't even need that third month in that quarter. Do you agree? Okay.
So my whole thing is preventative maintenance is not just turning wrenches, it's just being aware of where we are,
What's the
right?
fix?
Yeah.
So we just need to be aware of it.
Yes, sir.
And not be in the blind when we send the sample off.
Yes, sir.
So the samples that we take are not the samples that the state took.
So we're
Every
testing
month.
for
We
other
test for
things.
different things.
Right.
We're testing for other things.
So now we want them to start testing for what the state tests for. And the state does it every month?
Every
The state
3
does it every 3 months?
Every
quarter.
and some of them are spaced out, like they test for asbestos every 10 years.
So do you know ahead of time when the state is coming?
We know when they're coming, we don't know what they're sampling for.
Right.
Don't know where they're sampling?
What
What
they're sampling.
What they're sampling.
What they're sampling.
So do they sample for something different at different times?
Yes, ma'am. Some of the stuff is taken twice a year. Some of it's taken once a year, every 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
But we know what they're sampling for. It's not a random, right?
They do not notify us what they're sampling for. They set up the sampling schedule.
Something doesn't
So
seem
on all of that, is it a total of like 20 things that if you take all their whole sampling for a year, how many things are they sampling for? Are they 500 things or like 10 things? Just give me an idea.
If you get for a year, I'll give you a ballpark number. It's probably going to be about 50, 60
50 different,
things.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So we don't test monthly for any of those?
That's
Those
correct.
50?
None at all?
Not what they're testing.
That seems like a lack of preventative maintenance. to me.
Yeah, that's definitely.
But if you don't know, you don't know.
But
I don't care about
We gotta
what
test
you want
it
to
for
say about
something.
being.
Well, we know these 10 items are going to be tested. Wouldn't we
Doing
want to
that
test it
right.
on
It's
our
not the
own just to
end.
make sure we're in compliance?
But evidently,
Do we have the
we've been doing
capacity
it.
to test for that, what the state, do
lot.
we have the capacity
And we
to test for what the
passed.
state is testing?
So
Those 50
we
items.
need to do it now because we sent out this letter?
No, because we failed and we need to find out why we failed. Is it going to occur again? Is it going to
Right.
again and
Is it
again?
something we're gonna do?
You better bet if we fail once, they're going to test us again for the
Did
exact
we
same
put a
thing.
new well on? Did we put,
Exactly. So what's the path forward so we're not
I think that's the
going
grand
down?
question.
It's
What
once
is the
in a
path
lifetime
forward?
thing.
Like I said, I can always get you a quote to test for the things that they test for more regularly than the ones every 10 years. And I can pass that quote on to Mike.
So at least we're periodically doing it so we have an idea where we stand, right?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have our own baseline, yeah, just so we can say, oh, okay, this is where we are, we should be good, and what they're doing. If we see a deficit, let's go catch it before they catch it.
Yes, sir.
Because those, what I'd like to call them love letters in the mail to our residents is not fun to have to answer to.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
We spent a lot of time on this, and we're going to continue to deep dive and have some more coming back to the city.
Okay.
So we have a plan in place to correct this? Is that true?
Yes, Mike's group was able to, we did find a valve that was closed off of Caroline Street that was creating an artificial dead end, which that would cause the water age issue that we believe was done when contractor did some improvements off 105, I believe. They left the valve closed.
So how long is it going to be before we get back in the graces of the Texas?
I don't believe they come by to test again until the third quarter for that one.
Okay.
And then the sample has to obviously come in low.
But it wouldn't surprise me a bit if they didn't test for the exact same thing.
The TTHM, they're going to test for. on this
Exactly.
third. They've already tested if I'm getting it mixed up, the second quarter, which one, don't believe it's never been a TTHM back-to-back quarters.
Right, but we had a failure, so they're going to test again, right? That's how the government
Yeah, we're
works.
going to test on the third, we believe on the third quarter, but yes, sir. That's why we're doing all the extra TTHM testing right now.
Okay.
Don't seem that big of a problem if we can wait that long.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. Item 9, Public Works report.
All right, good evening. So just to touch a little further on what he said. So I want to let you know the difference between the PM program that we're talking about is mechanical PM. So it's pumps and motors and things like that. What I'll say to this is I don't believe that we should necessarily get into doing our own testing to stay ahead of this. What I feel is I feel like it should have been monitored a whole lot better than it was. I agree 100% that it should have been caught. Someone without, I don't want to get into a bashing session on our operations company. I'm not happy at all with this situation. I want y'all to know that. I'm not pleased at all with what's happened. I feel like they let us down. It should have been monitored in some way. This should have been caught several months ago. There should have been a trend seen. I don't have an answer as to why it wasn't, but I think the answer is monitoring the results closer. Not necessarily having to go out and test our own, because our test results may not get the same thing that the state test results are going to get. A different location could give us a false sense of security on numbers that we're looking at. We may look at a number at one place, may look good. The state may come out and pull a sample next door that may not be good. It happens. So I don't think the answer is extra expenses on testing for the normal future. What we're doing right now is we're trying to make sure that the numbers are coming down rather than waiting for 3 months when we get results from the state. We want to make sure that the drinking water is safe, the numbers are coming down, and we're happy with them. So that's why we're testing at 6 different sites instead of the 2 that the state's pulling from, which includes the well sites. So we will try to get an idea of the source. Is it well 4? Is it well 3? These results that we're waiting on that we hope to have by the end of this week will give us a better understanding of that. So
now, who gets the copies of these results?
So
Does the city?
No, the city doesn't get them. So what Jacob told me earlier is they actually don't get results from the state. They have to go on the website and find them and monitor them. So and I'm going to say what I feel is that should be being done.
Okay, because they're our operating company.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, but we can do it also.
We could.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But it would seem prudent that, again, that's a foundational piece of what H2O should be doing, that if they could just consistently be able to say, here's a flag, get with management, and now you're already flagging it, that before it even could possibly get to the state and be a problem.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like we can checks and balance, go behind that, like you're doing now, but do it way back several months ago. Like I said, in that month number 2, that flag should have went up, and then y'all should have been at least alerted.
Yeah.
So it didn't become a mad scramble like we had to do.
I agree. Compliance in the water and wastewater industry is a 24-hour-a-day job. The things that have to be monitored, they have a compliance team that handles their stuff. We've talked in the past of the possibility of going in-house with operations, and I still don't think that we're even near that point. I don't. One of the reasons is I believe we would have to hire one employee to just handle compliance. It's a full-time job. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of things to look at, and we as the city we pay a contractor to take care of that for us.
So what I've heard, there's not a fix, but they're going to try to do better. Is that right? What's the solution?
There's not a fix. Well, yeah, there's a fix.
Yeah, we can go, so between the city and H2O to go on the website and constantly make sure that we are in compliance, both sides.
You can test. Is the test expensive that you're talking about?
No, ma'am, I think
The state does?
it's not. It's, I think per round it was 105 per sample.
So we're doing this the next 3 months before they come out again?
We're doing it until we have a good sense that the numbers have come back down.
Okay.
So if we
And
test,
flushing and testing?
yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, if we get a couple of results back and they've come back down to where they're supposed to be, then we'll look at, calling it good at that point and feeling confident that the numbers will be good. We get numbers back this week and they're still high, we're going to extend that out a couple more times. We want to watch it and make sure that the numbers do come down.
And this is all over the city, not just, they only test in one area?
The state tests at 2 specific addresses that I learned the other day. One of the addresses has actually been on their list since 2004. But we are testing at 6 sites throughout the city, at different points in the city, to try to get a full picture.
So the state always tests, excuse me, Carol, the state always tests it, just those 2?
Yeah.
Is that right, Chris?
Yes, for these, it was these 2 addresses.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Carol.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay.
I've got a question. On building facility, vehicle and equipment maintenance, so that's going to all of our properties and inspecting and trimming trees and doing things like that at all of our properties?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And then the public works vehicles.
Yes. So at 213 Prairie, the storm that was over a month ago, there's still a big limb leaning against that building on the awning. And there's also a big tree that's down, split on Klepper. And those haven't been, so I saw here like they went around the city and I'm like, I've been watching it and it hasn't moved. And so I just didn't know if that wasn't on, now it's kind of making clear why there was a flood if we're not paying attention to that property. Is that on the list to pay attention to or to inspect?
Well, we do still go in there periodically and check it. We did verify that the water is off this time. Yeah, but as far as the couple of limbs that haven't been picked up, they're on city property and we're swamped. I'm understaffed. I've still got a guy that's out hurt. He's back working 4 hours a day now for another 3 weeks or so. But yeah, I mean, we are, as a department, we are scrambling every day to try to keep up. The last week, we have had to dedicate one person to doing nothing but keeping up with the TACUS contractors and locators to try to stay on top of that so we don't end up in a situation, which I think we're in a good spot with them. We've had good meetings on site, got a good understanding with them to call us if there's any doubt as to where they're drilling or what they're looking at, call us. They have my number, they have our foreman's number, they have our Ryan Thomas, who is dealing with TACUS every day. They have his number, so we're trying. But the couple of limbs that are left, we haven't touched them because they are on city property and they're not affecting anybody else except us.
213, we're not sure what the future looks like there, so I think that we would want it to look in good condition, depending on what happens with that. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
I got one more comment.
Okay.
Going back to the test results, was it fluorine related? I mean, was it
chlorine related?
Chlorine, I'm sorry.
So what was found in the water, what the high level was trihalomethanes, which is a result of chlorine. It's a result of what the chlorine does when it interacts with the natural organics in the water, is what it is.
Okay. Where I was going to is I wanted to ask about the bleach conversion that we're supposed to do. Remind me, what's the status of that?
It was pulled from the budget this year just because of money. We just didn't have the money. It's a good project that we would like to see happen, but whenever we look at the priorities, it falls to the bottom of the list.
Okay.
So, and it's still chlorine, so treating the water with bleach is still treating it with chlorine. It's just a safer version of chlorine as opposed to the gas.
The repaired and clogged line of the drinking fountain at Cedar Break Park, was that the dog one, or is that?
It was.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I went over there to use it. Came across town, threw a dog, and I'm like, it's not working.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was.
so I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know if I was like, did we turn this off, or I didn't know what, if that was a permanent status, or if that was there was something wrong.
Yeah, there was the drain inside of it was completely clogged. We had to take it apart and clean it out.
Anything else?
Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Item 10, engineers report.
All right, good evening, everyone. Starting on page 56 of your packets, we'll hit the highlights as usual. So your flagship boulevard project, we did receive pay estimate number 2, the amount of $117,378. As of June 30th, they're about 30% complete by value and 41% complete by time. They did combine the last 2 sections of the project, so this was phased out in 5 sections. They got with Brookshire, and they were okay with closing down the last 2, so both their drivers are closed. So they're able to expedite that a little bit to get it complete by mid-August is still their schedule. Also, I think I reported this last month, I can't remember, they were able to replace the line at the curve without going into the roadway, so that's about a $70,000 or so savings on the contract when it comes back around. Your sanitary sewer rehabilitation phase 1 project, reminder that was awarded to Cruise Tech last month. In the back of our report, you will see a handful of exhibits going over the scope of those repairs. We talked about where those were. So not going to go page by page, but kind of hit the highlights. So look on page 65 of your packet. You'll see the area that was done with the last downtown rehab project. So that's pulled out of obviously this phase. 64, you'll see the work on the main trunk line that goes through Lone Star Estates. And then finally, on the last 2 pages, you'll see a line that's grayed out, says not included in this scope of work. That is the upsizing that's part of phase 2, which has the TxDOT crossing, which is why it was pulled out, and is the next item on our report. So that gives you an overview of where everything is. We'll provide pictures as we get there throughout the project. Moving on to page 2 of our report, going through the main items, we talked about phase 2 for the rehab project. The next 3, the lift station 10 improvements, Old Plantersville, water and Old Plantersville Force Main, all of those are continuing with design. Kind of slow playing some of those regarding development agreements. The downtown McCowan Street waterline replacement project, we're wrapping up design, but just as we keep on saying, that project will be on hold for construction until the downtown improvements is closer. The next section on our report goes over all the plan reviews for the month. Mostly these are Montgomery Bend related, the lift station and the sections for Montgomery Bend. We did approve the plans on now page 3 of our report for the Texas and Beyond Plaza. This is where the old Con Hill Florist was. Those were approved back at the end of June. Plat reviews are listed. Again, nothing major to report. Ongoing construction, Montgomery Bend. At the top of page 59 of your packets, you'll see a couple photos of that ongoing construction out there, their water and sewer infrastructure. Going on to the general activities, updates on the TxDOT projects, which are still pending for the most part. We did receive some additional information on the Atkins Creek and 1097 improvements, that they're almost finalized with the maps of the right-of-way that they need. So hopefully they'll have those to us in the next few months, so we can keep that going forward. On to page 5 of the report. The traffic signal, we did receive the 90% plans from TxDOT for the Buffalo Springs and 105 signal. They did not have a timeline on finishing those plans, but we'll continue to push. Bottom of page 5 of our report, the Lone Star Parkway Bridge repair. 2 photos of the work going on there. One from last week, one from before they started, so you can see a little bit of the difference in the work that is being done and what they're accomplished.
Do we know, are we getting an update on how much they're spending, or change orders?
We have not. We'll ask, they're giving us construction updates, but we have not specifically asked about change orders.
I'm curious to see because of the delta and the chosen versus.
Yeah, and there's definitely, in the top of that picture, you'll see sheet piling that was installed. It wasn't the original scope of the work.
Of course not.
But we'll follow up. We'll let you know. And then the last page of our report, the Lone Star Parkway and Buffalo Springs intersection improvements. So as a reminder that signal equipment has been ordered by the county and expected to be installed in the fall. And at Commissioner's Court on July the 11th, they awarded the construction project for the turn lane addition and the widening at the intersection to, I don't have the name of the contractor on here, but they did award that project. It was a different contractor than the bridge. I do not remember. And then as attachments, we talked about the rehab exhibits. And then you'll see an update of your developments map showing all the active developments in and around the city. That's all I have unless you have any questions for me.
Now, when is the project starting on the sewer line?
So the contractor was provided contracts within the week after the meeting. He's required to return those within 2 weeks. So we should have those contracts back, I believe, this week, if my math is working right. We'll review them, check their bonds and insurance, get over to your attorney. Once he's reviewed it, it's already been approved by council, so we'll get it executed and have a pre-construction meeting. So I would assume with it being by middle of August, we'll have a notice to proceed out to the contractor. The first step that every rehab contractor does is they'll do pre-televising work. Even though it was just done, they confirm it for themselves so they don't dig up a location incorrectly. So that'll be a few months of that work. But one of their submittals is a construction schedule, so once we get that, we'll provide it to you.
Are landowners notified that this is happening?
Yes, so in the contract, there's multiple notices that contractor is required to put out. He's required to put a 2-week notice saying that there's going to be contractors in the area, they're going to be doing work on this project, and then they're required to provide a 48-hour notice when it's on that specific property. So in every time they enter. So when they do the pre-televising, there'll be a 48-hour notice. When they do the actual repair work, they'll do a 48-hour notice. If they go back and have to restore the site, there'll be a 48-hour notice. And so that's something we have our inspector check. They tell us where they're putting them out, and we go spot check to make sure those notices are going out. And it'll include what they're doing, what to be looking out for, information on the contractor, and information on us and the city if they have any questions.
Is that standard or is that WGA practice?
We've modified it. They typically do a door hanger normally for this work, but we modified for a little extra. We also asked for a submittal of their uniforms and their name badges so we can provide that to staff. So if anyone calls in, who is this person, there's a record of it.
Very good.
I asked because I think it's Tackus that's going on right now with all of the stuff.
There's like a 4-foot hole in my yard, I know that.
Yeah, I don't know that we all knew that they were coming, tearing up yards and doing, so it'd been nice to be able to tell the neighbors. So I just didn't know if that was a standard practice just for you, or if the city should have done that, or if Tackus should have done that. I don't know.
I agree. They were digging up right beside my water meter, and I was concerned because they were digging about a 6-foot hole, it looked like.
Yeah, Tackus is very good about
And no signs on the truck.
Yeah. And we had the resident that pulled a gun, or going to pull a gun on them, because they didn't know what they were doing.
Tackus has 5 different home contractors in town right now doing the work.
It's good intel. So we should be able to tell people.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11, the city administrator report.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just go down the list. It's in your packets. Our new finance director, Mary Ann Carl, started last Monday. She wanted to stay tonight so I could introduce her with this report, but I thought this was going to be a very long meeting, so I told her we would just do that at the workshop on Monday, so you'll meet her Monday. I know, Mayor, I think you've already met her. Carl, the interim finance director, so his last day, I think, was probably today. I wanted them to kind of work together to make sure there was a nice, easy transition. I think that's happened, so moving forward, I think we're in a good position. We found a really good person, so I'm happy about that. We held a couple water advisory team meetings to continue addressing priorities. We're looking at mass communication systems for notifications. We're shooting for an October implementation on that earlier if we can afford it. So right now, I'm just kind of talking to some companies that I know that do this and just getting some cost estimates. I'm going to bring it to the committee to kind of go through that process for them to give me a recommendation and then move forward. While we bring that, depending on the cost, it may come to you, it may not, but I'll keep you posted on that. Developing a strategy to address the water main breaks by the contractors. That's obviously a big priority for us. We're also updating our water conservation contingency planning, reviewing our emergency management policies. We interviewed, at one of our meetings, we interviewed an engineering firm that's looking to assist us with federal water grants. So we're working our way through that process with them. And we're, of course, continuing to strategize on the town hydrology issues that we're having. Moving on to the next one, special events that we've held recently. We assisted the chamber with Freedom Fest, which I thought that was a great event. Montgomery Water Party, which was last Saturday at the community center, successful. Movie night at Cedar Break Park was this past Saturday, and we have the next one's coming up on August 12th, which will be the DC League of Super Pets. So that's what Patty Allen announced that tonight. Next item, we held a workshop at the EDC to discuss revising the bylaws, hiring a full-time ED director, and doing some strategic planning after we went through our evolution on Friday. They decided to appoint a subcommittee to work with myself and Dave on the bylaws and going through the ED director analysis. Again, we'll do some strategic planning with the EDC after the council determines priorities, make sure we're all aligned. And so far, we've received 2 applications for EDC. My main focus over the next couple of months will be obviously budget development, strategic planning, and the city hydrology issues. So that's all I have for you tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer or reflect on some of this.
Who's running our historic Montgomery TX page? Who's in charge of that? Facebook
Great
page.
question. I do not know. Was that run by our EDC at some point? Or?
I used to run it. I think our EDC used to run it. I don't know who runs it now. Nikki, do you run it?
I have not.
The historic Montgomery TX page?
On Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Nicole, our admin assistant.
Okay. The reason I ask is they use this, I like that, they changed the profile page. However, there was some feedback that the city needs to put in more events. You got complaining when there were events, you got complaining there's no events, but I do think that we should be able to step it up. Is there anything the events girl is doing or ideas?
You're talking about stepping up?
Doing stuff downtown.
Downtown
Oh, yeah,
specifically.
we're in the early stages of developing that plan. Patty's, right now, is working as our permit tech in front counter to get that position filled. So she's got to do a double duty, but yes, I mean, when we brought her over to administration, the sole purpose of that is so we could develop a comprehensive special events program. And my direction to her, or anybody that we work with, is to be, let's be innovative. Let's do stuff that's going to make Montgomery a destination.
I like it.
Let's test drive some stuff. So yes, we're going to be coming up with a lot of different ideas and bouncing them off the team when we create that team and then moving forward. But yes.
So I didn't know if then the person running that Facebook page should just say, give me your ideas. What would y'all like to see, just to get feedback? Because if it's downtown business owners, which it is, saying it, what do you want? I mean, we've brought a festival in. There was the Antiques Festival that's no longer, that I think we should revive. If the city takes over Sip and Stroll every Thursday, I think that that's certainly something, but get their ideas of what they want, and then use that as part of the strategy and planning, because it doesn't seem like they don't think they have a voice. Personally, I think that they just want us to come up with everything and then they're going to complain about everything we do. So, but I just wanted to say I wanted to know who was running the page, and like I think we should ask them what they would like to see.
It's going to take some time to kind of get everything gathered together. One of the things that Patty and I did talk about is doing some surveys.
I just think a response to that, so it doesn't look like we're ignoring business owners.
So I will talk about your survey. I've talked to all, like personally, door to door on all the business owners, and every single one of them was a huge fan of the wine festival that the city used to put on, or
Chamber used to
put on. Every one of them liked the wine festival, so.
And so if we could implement that, because she took it out of town, I don't know if she'll bring it back after this year. I guess it depends on the success. We can do our own, but she depended on volunteers, and we need volunteers to do it. And I can volunteer today, but I don't know if I'll show up tomorrow.
Right. Well,
And that's part of the problem. So anyway.
She's having a hard time getting volunteers
for the new
out of
location.
town.
Right.
Yeah. But I do think there's some things that we can do.
just an idea. I know that's something that they all liked.
Yep, for sure. It was huge successful.
Yeah, so we want to bring back the stuff that the city wants back.
Yeah. That's why I was wanting a response to say, hey, what would you like to see? You know, you're putting it out there on social media, coming with no ideas, give us ideas.
And I think me not knowing it is a Facebook page kind of illustrates the plan. We're stretched staff-wise, so we got, I would love for us to have a social media coordinator at some point that's going to kind of oversee all this stuff, but it's just going to be a...
We're all up right here for free. We'll report back what we see.
But we'll get there.
Okay.
All right. Need a motion to approve departmental reports, items 5 through 11.
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve departmental reports.
All right, we have a second? Second is by Cheryl. Motion's debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. All in favor of approving departmental reports, items 5 through 11, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no. We will approve departmental reports 5 through 11. All right, no executive session scheduled this evening, so council inquiry.
Yes, I would like to make one. I have a downtown business person, Canberra Drummond, had received from the code enforcement, went because she was selling products outside. Someone from the community, not a business person, complained that it was tacky and unsightly, something along those lines. So I'd like to see if we could possibly, and I did look at the code, and it does say that you're not supposed to have stuff outside, but then that would apply to Kroger's, Brookshire's, everybody in town. So I'd like to see us possibly figure out how we can rework that code, because that is not applicable in today's society, I don't think.
I can answer that, Mayor.
Do what?
I can answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
If there's a question, I can answer. So we've contacted, Dave and I have talked about it. He's contacted Canberra, and we're going to meet, take a look at the ordinance and take a look at we'll look at best practices like we always do when we do amendments. See if there's ways that we can rewrite that ordinance that's going to...
Yeah, because
I think it adds to the charm. I mean,
because the ordinance was 1994, and I understand, I think I remember that it was a dispute among others in town. So that's why the ordinance was written in that fashion. But like I said, that would apply to Kroger's, that would apply to Brookshire's, that would apply to just about most businesses.
Jim's Hardware, it would apply to everybody.
Yeah, normally you would regulate that through different zoning districts. So you would have different commercial zoning districts that allow different levels of outside storage. Our issue is we only have one commercial zoning district, so it applies to everybody. It's a challenge, but we know that that's an issue. But I think in this case, it'll be easy for us to sit down and look through and see where we can find some middle ground that's going to make it.
And I'm like Sarah, I think it sort of adds to the charm when you go through there that you...
I agree.
Yeah.
I know we have updated our food truck ordinance, hallelujah. But when a business closes down and the food truck is still in town and we don't have storage lots in town, what's the plan forward to ensure that we don't have empty, non-working food trucks?
Yeah, we need to do a sweep.
Okay. So is that a code
Since
enforcement?
we've adopted the ordinance, we need to do a sweep and address that issue. But you can't, we need to go out and check on that.
Yeah, okay. I just don't think I don't like storage lots in our historic district.
Any others? All right. Entertain a motion to dismiss.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Need a
I
second?
second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.